We need to talk about modular. The title of this presentation alludes to the need for us to have a difficult conversation. It's a conversation about how we make buildings and how we need to change our approach. I'm going to focus on housing and schools, but the issues I'm discussing go right across the built environment. First of all, I'd like to get the terminology right. Our industry was struggling in this area, so I'll try and be clear what I mean by modular. It's a shorthand description really to describe any off-site based construction method during which individual components are manufactured or prefabricated in a factory, transported to a site either entirely or mostly complete, and then assembled on location. So the term modular includes volumetric, flat pack, and any other off-site manufactured building approach you can think of. We need to talk about modular because there's a need for change in the way our industry behaves to make it more productive and effective. Since 1994, every major review of the construction industry has, in some way, recommended a move towards off-site construction, from the partnering approaches suggested by Latham, capital investment in R&D and innovation by Egan and then later by Farmer, and the potential for modular building described by Sebastian James, specifically for the school sector in 2011. But very little seems to have changed in our industry over a quarter of a decade, in the UK at least. So let's quickly look at the global picture. People have been looking at off-site methods of construction for a long time, but the take-up has been relatively poor to date. The UK doesn't have significant volume in the market. Less than 5% of housing projects can be described as modular. And this is the same in the US and Australia, but other countries are moving towards manufactured buildings. Germany, Japan, China, and the Netherlands, as advanced manufacturing nations, are growing their capability, with Sweden blazing a trail in this area. Why Sweden? Well, suggestion from researchers is that this is driven by aspects such as their extreme weather conditions, their Scandi design culture, and environmental activism. Yes, so take note. High quality design and environmental sustainability are considered key aspects of modular building in Sweden. We should also take note of China's ambition for 30% of its construction output to be modular by 2026. 30%. Ooh. But here in the UK, we have a bit of a problem with modular, and we need to talk about it. We seem to have a confusion of polarized views where we have the traditionalists on one side who are very skeptical about modular building, and those I might affectionately call modular zealots at the other end who are enthralled to the benefits of the technology. I wouldn't describe myself as a modular zealot quite, but I do see the potential benefits of it. So let's just quickly review those now. Here comes the science. In terms of sustainability, modular reduces environmental impacts during construction. CO2, noise and water consumption are all reduced. There's reduction in traffic flows to and from site, and there are significant benefits in terms of congestion and pollution in the site vicinity. There are substantial benefits in terms of waste reduction too. Traditional construction produces 10 or 20% raw material wastage, while off-site construction can produce the same assets with just half the waste. The energy use associated with completed assets can also be significantly lower. So, without question, modular is a more environmentally sustainable way of building. Off-site construction has the potential to significantly reduce the risk of accidents and ill health too. If we universally adopted modular building techniques, there would be an estimated 80% reduction in the occurrence of injuries and death. Also, improved working conditions are a significant well-being benefit for employees because off-site methods reduce the need to work at height or underground, and production line techniques provide a much safer working environment. So modular building is a safer way to build. Now let's consider the speed and certainty of delivering construction projects. The National Audit Office has demonstrated that off-site construction methods could reduce on-site build times by up to 50%. When compared with a traditional build program, modular methods can reduce the overall program by between 25 and 50% if the project is conceived to be modular from the outset. The if in that sentence has to be emphasized because designing for traditional construction and then redesigning for modular construction is unlikely to save any time for anyone. And if we consider that in 2018, only 60% of construction projects were completed on budget and less than 40% were delivered on time, then modular presents a huge opportunity for the industry to improve its performance. So modular building can enable speedier project completion, provide greater certainty, and give improved delivery. And so to the thorny issue of cost. It's difficult to be definitive about cost because of the range of construction types and how cost is reported. However, from studies carried out by Faithful and Gould and a recent report by AECOM comparing costs for schools, I think it's reasonable to assert that on a like-for-like quality basis, traditional and modular schools cost about the same. And the modular zealots among us would add here that if we had sufficient volume of modular projects in gestation, then no doubt this cost base would reduce too, enabling modular to be a cheaper way to build the same quality of project. So, to summarize then, modular costs about the same as traditional, but is evidently more sustainable, it's safer, faster, and better quality than traditional. Whoa, hang on, say the traditionalist. Did you say better quality? Yes, I did. Based on a report done by Loughborough University into the barriers and opportunities for modular construction, and while the overall picture of the benefits of modular remains confused, most clients, designers, and contractors think that modular construction improves quality. Certainly, a factory-controlled setting ought to produce better quality first time and snag-free. But clearly, there are barriers to modular construction because our output is, as we said, only at around 5%. So I would characterize these barriers into two main issues. First, it's around ingrained perceptions that pervade our industry based on post-war prefabs. Secondly, the traditional supply chain business models that many contractors, particularly house builders, are reluctant to change in favor of modern production facilities that require new investment. So let's consider the perception issue first of all. There was, of course, a post-war school and housing building boom. Out of necessity and due to a lack of building materials and labour, modular solutions were trialled. Often these were meant to be temporary solutions, but many are still with us in operation today. And this has clouded our perception of modular. Many baby boomers have experienced these types of buildings, and they are the decision makers. In addition to this, there's many temporary structures which get confused with permanent modular construction. And so for many, this is what modular looks like. The second main barrier to the adoption of off-site or modular construction is a lack of investment in the production facilities required to deliver buildings. The operating profit of the top 25 contractors fell from 2.5% in 2014 to 1.2% in 2018. And so to be a successful contractor, it seems you have to make very little money. And so with no guarantee of pipeline of work, who would invest, say, £100 million in an off-site factory? Well, the answer to that so far is only Laing O'Rourke. So then, as an industry, how do we overcome these barriers? How can we realise the potential that modular could clearly deliver and create a step change in the success of the construction industry? Well, we're facing a set of unique circumstances currently, and change therefore may be forced upon us. Our population is booming. We need another 10,000 primary school places across the country within the next 4 years. Skilled tradespeople are retiring at an alarming rate. Falling numbers of graduates are joining the industry, and apprenticeship levels are significantly below the required threshold. Brexit will reduce the skilled tradespeople previously coming from the EU. That's an accepted fact. And so the workforce is estimated to reduce by about 20 to 30% over the next decade. So building traditionally is going to get more difficult, more expensive. This in itself may drive change. But in my view, we shouldn't just passively allow supply and demand to drive change. As an industry, we can and should take action to accelerate the uptake of modular construction. And importantly, change can be delivered by bold action in the private sector. Here's what I think we need to do to address in a virtuous circle of activity. We need to address capacity. Contractors need to invest in manufacturing capability or partner with modular builders to increase our construction capacity to deliver modular buildings. Clients, or indeed the public's perception of modular, needs to be changed. As an industry, we need to educate and improve the public's perception of modular technology. In terms of insurance and assurance, the financial sector needs to underwrite modular construction more, especially in the housing sector. We as designers need to embrace modular building. Architects need to nurture the idea that modular is not a barrier to creativity. We need to utilize the technologies, the data and the new materials that are available to us. We need to collaborate more. The logistics of off-site construction is a whole new ball game for the industry, and supply chains remain desperately fragmented. So clients, designers, contractors and manufacturers need to collaborate much more effectively to solve these challenges. We need to stop working in silos. And finally, funding. Government needs to play its part by guaranteeing workflow and encouraging the training, skills and investment required to make modular a priority. And in fairness, government is starting to do this, with major frameworks now starting to be let for modular building. With all of this in place, we could start to catch up with countries like Germany, Japan and the Netherlands, maybe not Sweden just yet. But if we don't do these things, then perhaps the construction industry will be seen as a soft target for outside disruption. And there's a growing acceptance in the UK that traditional building model is under threat. As Roger Bayliss of Skanska said back in 2015, the traditional model of contractors will not exist in 10 years' time. Well, there's only 5 years of that 10 left, and we're beginning to see disruption coming from outside our industry. Legal & General, for example, they could be described as a bit like Uber for construction. They've begun to seize the opportunity, are investing heavily in the housing sector. Teamed up with Dutch pension fund manager PGGM, they plan to construct modular homes that are underwritten and mortgageable by themselves. This approach is already starting to expand. So looking back in 20 or 30 years' time, will we say that this was the decade in which everything changed for the construction industry? I think and I hope so. In the end, I think that it doesn't matter whether you believe in modular construction as the way forward or not. It's happening whether we like it or not. I believe that the tide has turned, and as designers, HLM architects are embracing this sea change. Thank you very much.